What if the serpent wasn't just a symbol of evil, but a keeper of ancient wisdom? Across cultures, the serpent appears in myths, religions, and sacred texts, not as a villain, but as a guide, a healer, even a divine force. In this video, we dive deep into the hidden meanings behind serpent symbolism, from Eden to Egypt, from Kundalini to Quetzalcoatl. What secrets are coiled within these ancient stories? And why has the serpent been both feared and revered throughout time? This is Symbols of the Serpent, Inner Meanings of Myths. Prepare to see the serpent like never before. The serpent is among the oldest and most persistent symbols in human mythology. It winds through the myths of ancient Egypt and Sumer, slithers into the sacred texts of Judaism and Christianity, rises as a dragon in Asia and Europe, coils around deities in Hinduism, and dances through Native American and African cosmologies. It is a paradox, life and death, creation and destruction, wisdom and deceit, divine and demonic. But why? What makes the serpent such a potent image in the human psyche? In this long-form exploration, we peel back the layers of time, culture, and meaning to uncover the inner meanings behind the symbols of the serpent, revealing a sacred code, a hidden truth embedded in the myths of old. 1. The serpent as the cosmic teacher. Across many traditions, the serpent is not a figure of evil, but a bearer of knowledge. In Hinduism, the serpent or Naga is deeply revered. The coiled serpent energy, known as Kundalini, lies dormant at the base of the spine. When awakened through spiritual discipline, this energy rises through the chakras, illuminating the soul and uniting it with the divine. Here, the serpent is not a demon, but a pathway to enlightenment. Similarly, in Mesoamerican traditions, the feathered serpent, known as Quetzalcoatl among the Aztecs and Kukulkan among the Maya, was a god of learning, wind, and creation. He was a bringer of knowledge, a civilizer who taught language, agriculture, and spirituality. The serpent, then, is not just a creature of instinct. It is a symbol of transformational wisdom. Its movements, shedding skin, slithering between realms, coiling and uncoiling, mirror the path of spiritual rebirth. 2. The serpent in the garden, reframing Eden. Perhaps the most infamous serpent in Western consciousness is the one from the Garden of Eden, who tempts Eve with the fruit of the tree of knowledge. Traditionally, this story is seen as a fall, a disobedience that leads to suffering and exile. But from another perspective, the serpent acts not as a deceiver, but as a catalyst for human consciousness. What it offers is not sin, but awareness of good and evil, of selfhood, of mortality. The act of eating the fruit opens the door to free will and complexity. In this light, the serpent is not the enemy of God, but the guardian of deeper knowledge, a spiritual test, not a trap. This interpretation aligns with Gnostic traditions, which held that the serpent was a liberator from ignorance, and that the God who forbade knowledge was a false or lesser deity. In Gnostic texts like the Apocryphon of John, the serpent represents the divine Sophia or wisdom. Could it be that the story of Eden is not about a fall from grace, but a necessary evolution of consciousness? If so, the serpent is not our doom, but our awakening. 3. The Ouroboros, eternity and the cycle of life. One of the most enduring serpent symbols in myth is the Ouroboros, a snake or dragon eating its own tail. This image, found in ancient Egypt, Greece, India, and Norse mythology, represents the eternal cycle: life, death, rebirth. In alchemy, the Ouroboros signified the unity of opposites, the merging of matter and spirit, the completion of transformation. It is self-consuming and self-creating, a symbol of the cosmic loop where endings become beginnings. In this sense, the serpent is a perfect metaphor for the mystical laws of the universe, time as a circle, not a line, destruction as a prelude to creation, the self as both devourer and reborn. This symbolism finds resonance in Taoist philosophy, where the balance of yin and yang creates motion and existence. The serpent, flowing, circular, and boundaryless, becomes a living embodiment of cosmic equilibrium. 4. Serpents and divine feminine power. In many ancient cultures, serpents are linked to the divine feminine, to fertility, mystery, and primal power. In Mesopotamian myth, the goddess Inanna descends into the underworld and encounters a serpent who guards the tree of life. In Greek mythology, the Oracle of Delphi, one of the most sacred sites of prophecy, was originally dedicated to the serpent goddess Python, later slain and appropriated by Apollo. The serpent here is not evil. It is ancient chthonic earth-based and associated with wisdom from below, the deep unconscious, the womb of the earth. Even in ancient African and Caribbean traditions, serpent deities like Damballa in Vodou are venerated as sacred forces of life and transformation. This feminine association is also present in the medical symbol of the staff with the serpent, rod of Asclepius, which represents healing, renewal, and knowledge, a legacy of the feminine arts of midwifery and herbalism that once involved serpent symbolism. To demonize the serpent, then, is to demonize the feminine principle itself, a reflection of patriarchal suppression in religious history. 5. Serpents as guardians of the threshold. Throughout world mythology, serpents often appear as threshold guardians, blocking or granting access to sacred spaces, hidden realms, or forbidden knowledge. In Egyptian mythology, the serpent Apep represents chaos and darkness, attempting each night to swallow the sun god Ra. Yet even in this battle, the serpent is part of the cosmic balance. Without Apep, there is no journey, no triumph, no dawn. In Norse mythology, Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent, encircles the world and plays a vital role in Ragnarok, the cycle's end and beginning. Its existence is both terrifying and essential. In myth, what we fear is often what we must face to evolve. The serpent becomes a trial, a guardian of inner transformation, demanding courage, insight, and surrender. In the initiation rites of mystery schools, serpents often appear as signs that the initiate is crossing from the known to the unknown, from ordinary life to sacred knowledge. 6. Dragons, serpents, and cultural interpretation. In the West, the serpent's close cousin, the dragon, has often been cast as a beast to be slain. Think of St. George and the dragon or Smaug in Tolkien's tales. These dragons hoard treasure, guard virgins, and symbolize greed, chaos, or pride. But in Eastern cultures, dragons are noble and wise, symbols of balance, reign, cosmic energy, and royal power. Chinese emperors claimed the dragon as their totem. In Japanese Shintoism, serpentine dragons, like Ryujin, ruled the seas and represented spiritual authority. This East-West divide reflects differing cosmologies. In the West, shaped by dualism and conquest, the serpent must be defeated. In the East, shaped by harmony and flow, the serpent is a partner in the dance of existence. Understanding this cultural divergence helps us see how myth isn't universal in form, but often universal in function. The serpent always points to transcendence. The only question is whether we embrace it or fear it. 7. Psycho-spiritual symbolism. The serpent within. From a psychological perspective, particularly in Jungian terms, the serpent is an archetype of the unconscious. It represents our instincts, our primal energy, our hidden desires. To confront the serpent is to confront the shadow, the part of ourselves we fear or repress. In dreams and visions, serpents often signal that something powerful is stirring within, the potential for awakening, or danger if resisted. The coiled serpent in our bodies, the Kundalini, is our spiritual potential. The serpent in our dreams may be our unintegrated trauma, our sexuality, or our creativity. To work with the serpent is to undertake the path of inner alchemy, to transmute base energy into gold. 8. Why the serpent endures. Why does the serpent persist in our myths, despite millennia of changing belief systems? Because it is not just a symbol, it is a mirror. It reflects life's paradoxes, beauty and danger, healing and poison, wisdom and temptation. It speaks to something so fundamental in human experience that it cannot be erased, only transformed. It endures because it represents change itself, and change, for the human soul, is the doorway to everything sacred. In many ways, the serpent has been one of humanity's most misunderstood symbols. Vilified in some traditions and glorified in others, it has slithered through sacred stories, mythic landscapes, and the depths of the subconscious for thousands of years. From the Garden of Eden to the temples of India, from the altars of Mesoamerica to the healing staffs of ancient Greece, the serpent is more than a creature. It is a code, a mystery, a mirror. To reclaim the serpent is not simply to reverse its reputation from evil to good. It is to retrieve a lost part of ourselves, our instinctual wisdom, our intimate connection to the cycles of nature, and our reverence for the unknown. It is to remember that the serpent has always been a symbol of transformation, rebirth, healing, and divine knowledge. In this essay, we will journey through the history, symbolism, suppression, and resurrection of the serpent archetype. By reclaiming the serpent, we also reclaim a deeper, wilder, and more complete vision of the sacred. 1. The serpent in ancient wisdom traditions. Long before the serpent was associated with sin or deception, it was venerated as a sacred force. In ancient Egypt, the serpent was both protector and adversary. The cobra uraeus adorned the crowns of pharaohs as a symbol of sovereignty and divine power. Yet Apep, the great serpent of chaos, also symbolized the dark forces that Ra had to overcome each night to be reborn at dawn. Here, the serpent represented the eternal tension between order and chaos, light and shadow, both necessary for cosmic balance. In Hinduism, the serpent is revered as a cosmic force. The great serpent Anantashisha supports the entire universe upon his coils. Meanwhile, Kundalini, the coiled energy at the base of the spine, is visualized as a serpent that rises upward through the chakras during spiritual awakening, culminating in union with the divine. The serpent is not a tempter. It is a pathway to enlightenment. In Mesoamerican culture, the feathered serpent, Quetzalcoatl, was a god of creation, wisdom, and wind. He taught humans agriculture, calendar systems, and spiritual knowledge. In many ways, Quetzalcoatl mirrors Prometheus, bringing divine fire and knowledge to humanity. In all of these cases, the serpent is not a symbol of evil. It is a carrier of divine truth, a being that bridges heaven and earth, the mortal and the immortal. 2. The fall and the vilification of the serpent. The serpent's status changed dramatically with the rise of patriarchal monotheistic religions, particularly within certain interpretations of Judaism and Christianity. In the book of Genesis, the serpent tempts Eve to eat the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. This act leads to the expulsion of humanity from Eden and is traditionally viewed as the origin of sin. But was the serpent truly the villain? Alternative interpretations, especially from Gnostic texts, paint a different picture. In the Apocryphon of John, the serpent is aligned with Sophia, the divine feminine aspect of wisdom, who seeks to liberate Adam and Eve from the ignorance imposed by the false god Yaldabaoth. Here, the serpent doesn't deceive, it awakens. The Gnostic perspective suggests that the true fall was not disobedience, but forgetfulness, the forgetting of our divine origins. The serpent, then, becomes a messenger of remembrance, urging us to see beyond appearances and reclaim our inner light. So why was the serpent demonized? This shift can be seen as part of a broader suppression of the feminine, the intuitive, and the earth-based spiritualities. The serpent, associated with goddess worship, earth wisdom, and cyclical regeneration, became threatening to a hierarchical, male-dominated religious order. It had to be cast out, just as Eve was blamed, just as the earth was to be subdued. In this historical light, the serpent's vilification is not just a spiritual shift. It is a cultural trauma that severed humanity from an older, more balanced way of being. 3. The serpent and the divine feminine. Across many ancient traditions, the serpent is a powerful symbol of the divine feminine, not merely as a goddess, but as the principle of life, intuition, mystery, and rebirth. In prehistoric cultures, serpents often appear in goddess figurines and sacred objects. The Minoan snake goddess, holding serpents in both hands, was not feared but revered. In her presence, the serpent symbolized fertility, power, and protection. In the Greek world, before Apollo took over the oracle at Delphi, it was presided over by the priestess of the Earth Mother, who was associated with the serpent Python. When Apollo slayed Python, it symbolized not just a conquest of chaos, but a suppression of the feminine prophetic tradition. The serpent's association with cyclical life, shedding its skin, burrowing in the earth, emerging again, mirrored women's cycles and the rhythms of nature. To demonize the serpent was to demonize life itself, its messiness, its sexuality, its changeability, its wisdom. Reclaiming the serpent means reclaiming the sacred feminine, not just in women, but in all people and all aspects of life. It means honoring intuition alongside intellect, the earth alongside the heavens, the dark alongside the light. 4. The serpent as healer and transformer. In ancient medicine, the serpent was not a symbol of sickness, but of healing. The rod of Asclepius, a single serpent entwined around a staff, remains a symbol of medicine to this day. Asclepius, the Greek god of healing, was often surrounded by serpents in his temples. These creatures were seen as wise, able to renew themselves through shedding their skins, mirroring the process of recovery, transformation, and rebirth. In African traditions, serpents such as Damballa in Vodou are benevolent, generative spirits associated with fertility, rain, and healing. Far from being evil, they are honored as ancestors and divine messengers. Even in modern psychological frameworks like Jungian analysis, the serpent is a powerful archetype, representing the unconscious, primal life force and the potential for transformation. Jung saw the serpent as a symbol of the shadow and the need to integrate what we fear or repress in order to become whole. Thus, to reclaim the serpent is to embrace transformation as sacred, not as a punishment or failure, but as a path to deeper truth. 5. The serpent within, instinct, intuition, and inner wisdom. Beyond myth and history, the serpent lives within each of us. It represents the instinctual intelligence that keeps us alive, the gut feeling, the bodily knowing, the energetic flow that modern life often teaches us to ignore. In many spiritual systems, this is visualized as a coiled energy at the base of the spine, kundalini, which, when awakened, leads to inner illumination. Yet Western culture has often taught us to fear the serpent within, to suppress desire, silence intuition, and mistrust the body. This has led to disconnection, anxiety, and spiritual dryness. Reclaiming the serpent means reclaiming the body as sacred. It means honoring instinct not as animalistic or sinful, but as a form of wisdom that guides us toward wholeness. It also means making peace with the shadow, our fear, our anger, our doubt. The serpent invites us not to slay our inner dragons, but to befriend them, to listen, to learn, and to integrate. 6. The return of the serpent in modern consciousness. In recent decades, we've seen a global resurgence of serpent symbolism in art, spirituality, psychology, and even science. In the world of plant medicine and shamanic healing, serpent visions often accompany profound experiences of ego dissolution and spiritual rebirth. In yoga and energy healing, Kundalini practices are embraced as powerful tools for awakening. Even quantum physics and biology have stumbled upon serpent-like imagery. The double helix of DNA, the spiraling galaxies, the coiling patterns of energy and time. The serpent, it seems, was always telling the truth. Life is not linear. It is cyclical, spiraled, and sacred. Culturally, many are turning away from rigid doctrines and rediscovering earth-based wisdom, mythic archetypes, and embodied spirituality. The serpent, long buried beneath layers of dogma, is beginning to rise again. 7. Reclaiming the serpent in our lives. So how do we reclaim the serpent, not just in myth, but in our own lives? We begin by listening to our bodies, our dreams, our inner rhythms. We honor the sacred in cycles, beginnings and endings, joy and grief, growth and letting go. We question inherited stories that cast wisdom as dangerous and instinct as untrustworthy. We open ourselves to the possibility that the unknown is not our enemy. It is our teacher. We work to heal the split between spirit and body, masculine and feminine, human and nature. And most of all, we walk the serpent's path of transformation. We shed our old skins, our masks, our limitations, our fears, and emerge anew, again and again, just as we were meant to. The wisdom that slithers beneath. The serpent was never merely a symbol of sin or seduction. It was always more ancient, more complex, more sacred than we were taught. To reclaim the serpent is to reclaim the very heart of spiritual experience, the journey of descent and ascent, the mystery of death and rebirth, the power of embodied knowing. In every coil, in every story, in every dream where the serpent appears, there is a message. You are more than what you seem. You are sacred, wild, and wise. You are ready to transform. And so, we return not to the serpent of fear, but to the serpent of truth, the teacher, the healer, the sacred spiral at the center of life. The serpent has slithered through the roots of our oldest myths, not just as a creature, but as a symbol of power, transformation, and hidden truth. From ancient temples to sacred scrolls, its presence speaks to something deeper within us. If we dare to look beyond fear, we may find wisdom coiled in mystery. Thanks for joining us on this journey through symbols of the serpent, inner meanings of myths. If this opened your eyes or stirred your curiosity, like, share, and subscribe for more decoded truths from the ancient world. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and never stop remembering.